So turning to the details a little bit more, we've talked a bit about how you pitch to investors and how it's different for every investor. But as you're evaluating films, if someone comes to you with $1 million project, what can they show you and what are you looking at to decide whether this will be financially successful and whether this is something that you think should be invested in? We should start with Bobby because it's such a numbers question here.
Okay. You know, when I'm looking at $1 million budget, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with that? Right? So,
let's say 5 then.
And I say that because you don't sit there and take a guy who produces, or a line producer, or a UPM, or whatever it is, someone that produces $20 million movies and try to fit them into a package of $1 million movie. We just don't know how to make those kind of movies. I'm learning. I've made smaller movies, but it's not in our nature. We know how bigger budgets work, right? So we like to take advantage of that. So we should be drinking Boone's Farm, but we're actually drinking champagne, right? So, so the first thing I would look at on $1 million movie, if I'm an investor, is the background of the people that are involved. And it's just like, you know, we hear about venture capital and the, you know, startups and Series A, Series B. Does that executive team that's running this movie, whether it be the director or the producers, have the ability to take it to an exit, okay? And also, am I going to have fun doing this? And I think those are the two criteria. I'm going to look really intensely at the background of those people, and are they completely full of shit or just somewhat full of shit? And that's the reality of it, right? Because we all know there's variables that go on in Hollywood, and if investors don't know that, and I come from a world of disclaimers, right? I'm regulated from every major regulatory agency you can possibly imagine, so I have to put a disclaimer on everything. You have to sit there and really, you know, you have to know what the end user wants and make sure you have the right team in place to actually deliver.
Ted.
I have a question. Would you help the producer to facilitate in gathering some of those people that perhaps they don't have at the onset if you believe in the project?
That's the job of a producer, and producers get paid to do that.
Well, you just said that Bobby wears many hats, so I'm just asking him directly.
Bobby, do you have a producer's fee that you charge sometimes?
So my producer's fee is about $1 million, so it's a little bit different. So, you know, I would say it's, you know, when I'm here in Chicago versus in LA or New York, it's a totally different mindset. When you're here in Chicago, this is who you want to get behind. They are the head of the front. I mean, these guys are the best, right? They're hustling. They know people on the coast. They get it, and they're making things happen in an environment 6 years ago. I can tell you, it didn't happen. I mean, I was hated because I didn't bring movies back to Chicago. Now, I think Chicago is so ripe to bring movies back versus episodic TV. But you can't do it without people like this. So I think you attach yourself to talent like these guys, to Jenny, and some of the other people out there that can go, if they need that extra strength or that extra mojo, you know, or the credibility, they have the ability to go get it, you know. But I believe in, if I'm a producer and I'm backing a director, when I get into production, if I've already known exactly what every shot's going to look like and everything like that, at that point, I've backed that director. Now I got to go close the bank loan and everything like that, right? So you're betting on the team. This is a good team to bet on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
One of the things that, and frankly, again, this comes back to years ago. When I met Bobby, it was to pitch him a movie that I was trying to make, and I didn't know any of this stuff. And frankly, he gave me a lot of free advice, which I appreciate. You know, at the time, his fee was only $500,000. I couldn't pay that, but it's gone up. I think that his point is exactly right to what you look at. And so with the Chicago Media Angels, what I try to do is I try to find high net worth individuals in the Midwest who have an appetite for investing in content. And then half of our meetings are education, so we have experienced producers talk to us and try to teach us. And then they hear 3 pitches. And so anecdotally, as I've observed them, we've had 1 meeting so far. So we're just getting started. But I think Bobby's exactly right that it's the first and foremost is the team. Who are the people? The biggest red flag when somebody pitches a movie to me, if you are the writer, the director, the lead actor, the editor, and that is a big problem, because the reality is this is a highly collaborative industry, everybody needs to know their spot, and nobody can do everything. And so I immediately am turned off by somebody who's going to do it all themselves. Finding a team that's going to be able to get through the challenges of producing something, and they're going to see it through, and they understand that they're, to Angie's point, which she said a couple times, they understand they're making a product, and the job isn't to just produce it. The job is to produce it and then sell it, which is a whole big thing. A lot of people pitch ideas to us, and they just have their idea, and they know kind of what they think, and they need to finish it, but they have no idea what it's going to take to then go sell it. And we're just going to go to Sundance and win, and somebody's going to give us millions of dollars. That's not the plan, and that doesn't just happen either. People put a lot of money into doing that. Not that that's not a viable way to get your money back. It is, but you got to know how to do that, and you got to have the resources and the experience to execute that. So I look for teams that can execute their plan, and a plan that's viable. Second to the people is, do you know your audience, and how are you going to reach that audience? What is the niche? Is there some blog or some brand or something that is tied into that audience? And you got to be able to articulate that very clearly. Who is that audience? And so those are the main things that I look for. My job is to make sure that people can execute the plan is viable, and they know who they're trying to sell it to. That doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be successful. In fact, my expectation is half of those people who have a really good plan and have really good people, half the time they're not going to succeed. But we leave it up to the investors to make that final aesthetic, subjective decision of where they want to put their dollars. And that comes down to, in the event that you do make a film and you don't get all your money back, is that going to be something you're proud of? Is that something you want your name on? Unlike investing in a new tech startup company, what's exciting about this is you do get something out at the end of the day, whether you get your money out or not, if that's something that you're going to be excited about and proud about. So I think story is a big thing, but that's a subjective thing. There's not like a right story.
I would say that for me, I take a lot of pitches and I receive a lot of scripts from people who don't have producers. So they come to me and they say, here's my idea. And the exciting thing for me is kind of developing that structure in a new digital space and being like, okay, well, how are we gonna put this together? And then how am I going to help you sell that to someone like the Chicago Media Angels or the investors? For me, coming from a line producer production management background here in Chicago, it's understanding your scope. I struggle with that with a lot of filmmakers from the outset. Understanding what is possible with what you're asking for, and also understanding if you come to me and you say, I need $500,000, I want you to be able to tell me why you picked that number. We did a film in 2014 that'll be out later this year by a writer who wrote on The Big Bang Theory, brilliant writer, first-time director, and the script is called Thrill Ride. It follows a bunch of kids as they sneak into an abandoned amusement park and search for Al Capone's hidden loot. So family adventure, VFX, whole 9 yards, fire-breathing dragons, sea witches, whatever. He came to me and it's beautiful script. I mean, this script reads, like something that Bobby is far more experienced to produce than myself. Like $40 million, whatever it is. And I asked him, I say, how much money do you have? And he said, 450 grand. And I said, why? I was like, I thought it was a lot of money. And we did it, for the record. We did it, we shot for 6 weeks, we built an entire indoor amusement park. We had a massive crew, we flew cast in from LA. We did it for that amount of money. But it was hard. And I think it's really, really important to understand your scope. My background coming from line producing and trying to find that penny pinching, I think there are really a handful of hands-on producers in Chicago that can do really, really great work in that sub $1 million space. And I think you need to find them. because it can be, if you don't spend your money right, if you don't put everything you have on screen, if you don't get those favors and structure those deals appropriately, it's really easy to make not a lot of money look like a lot less than it is.
Agreed. What I would say is, if somebody comes to me and they have a pitch or whatever, and I'm taking that meeting for whatever reason it is, and usually there's only because there's money behind it, if they don't know the exit strategy to that project, whether it be a film or whatever else, get out of my office. You don't understand the business. You're completely creative. Get out. You don't understand what it takes to be an independent person in Hollywood these days, okay? And I really believe that. If you're a writer, you better be writing knowing you're trying to get independent distribution. Do not come to me and show me that you want to go do a 1,000-person extra scene that's going to last me 5 days and blows. Get out of my office, okay? And I really, and Jenny has seen it, I say get out, and I'm not that nice when I say it. So I actually look at it from a perspective of, you know, if you don't understand the business model, then come to me and say, I don't understand, how can you help me? Versus, I know how I'm going to make this movie, but I don't know how I'm going to sell it, I don't know how I'm going to distribute it, I don't even know what channels are open to me to go distribute this movie and make the money back. Because you know what, I've been sued, how many times have we been sued in Hollywood? Let me tell you, you get sued if you make money because people want more, you get sued if you lose money because they want it back. And I've been sued on almost every movie I've ever done. And that's just the way it works. And it's kind of like a rite of passage. So, so what I would tell you is that you better understand the business.
And I would say, for me, part of what I love to do right now is you come to me and you say, I'm a writer-director, I need to understand the business. How am I going to get this from point A to point B to point C? I like helping you structure that, right? Because I'm a producer. That's what I like to do. Now, please don't all come and give your scripts right now. But I think it's important to recognize that, especially in the independent scene, you really don't have to do it all by yourself. You don't have to be the writer, director, producer, actor, and you really should not be. And if you don't understand something, make that clear and ask a lot of questions, or find someone, like they were talking about the team and the people you put together, find someone that you can bring onto your team to help navigate that, so that when you do go into Bobby's office, you don't get kicked out.
Well, I think you have to know what questions you don't, you don't know everything to ask, okay? And that's the biggest problem I've actually had with Chicago. And I'm a very, obviously, you can all tell I'm a straightforward, kind of ruthless kind of guy. And, I'm very critical of people in Chicago because I feel like they don't have the exposure that we have on, the coast. And therefore, like, you guys are working in a network pool of XYZ, amount of scripts or whatever else. At my office, we get 20 scripts from the biggest agencies every month, every day, every week, that have every massive type of talent from George Clooney on down already attached, that all I have to do is figure out the financing on it. It's already packaged. I don't spend money on development. I don't do anything like that, right? So, and that's the biggest problem with Chicago, is that you have to know what you don't know, and you have to attach yourself to people like this that can actually help you get across that goal line, and that can help you with distribution, and find those people in LA or New York, and do what you have to do in order to be successful. Because once again, it's great to make a movie. It's even better to make 20. So that's what I would tell you.
Well, in piggybacking off of that, I think this is something we need to do in Chicago. And again, this comes from what I learned when I met with Bobby years ago. We're tiny. We did $300 million of production here last year. That compares with $3 billion plus in New York, $6 billion plus in California, $1.5 billion in Louisiana. We are tiny. And I think one of the biggest things that's held Chicago back for a very long time, and this is from a guy who came from the finance world into this a couple of years ago, I'm blown away by how siloed the Chicago production community can be. Everybody kind of sits in their own room or their own little business, and they pick up whatever work they can get making commercials, and then they talk shit about everybody else in town about how they suck. And I think that one of the biggest things that is what's so exciting about what's happening here at 2112, what we're trying to do at Stage 18, we need to create our own little cartel. We need to work together. And it's not your $1 million film versus my $1 million film. if we can all band together, A, we can learn a lot of these things that we need to learn. Bobby's right, we have a lot to learn. Two, so we can share that experience, we can share that little bit of knowledge that each of us has. And two, we can be taken a lot more seriously by distribution companies. Distribution companies are coming around on lower budget content, but they don't want $1 million movie. That's a pain in the ass for them. But if you're going to make 10 of those a year,
100%.
you're all of a sudden a hell of a lot more interesting to them.
You're absolutely right.
And so that's the need for us right now as Chicago to band together and all get in the same room and brand ourselves together so that you can sell your $1 million movie, and you can sell your $1 million movie, and you can sell your $1 million movie, and the distributors aren't going to look at it as your movie or your movie or your movie. That's one of those from that crowd in Chicago. And I think that's what we're trying to do right now, and I think we got a lot of momentum there.
Think about it like if you came from 2112, and you know, I don't know much about it, but I know you guys are doing really well with it, and it's exciting stuff. But if you came at it, if I was an individual coming from Chicago and I'm going to the major agencies or whatever else, you're not getting any time. If I say I'm coming with a slate of movies, okay, that says I'm going to do 7 to 10 movies, guaranteed, I've got the money lined up, okay, my incentives or whatever else are part of the revenue stream, and I'm going to make 7 to 10 movies over the course of XYZ time, 18 to 24 months. There's definitely interest. Why? Because they can go, you're not going to get Brad Pitt, like Ted says, but you're going to be able to go get some decent B-C level actors, which based on your budget, that's going to be feasible for you to sit there and go create some type of distribution channels on. And you're going to have a lot more interest if you say, listen, I will work with you, WME, or with Management 360 or CAA, and say, give me this level of talent because this is what I need in order to get distribution, and then you have the pleasure of casting whoever you want. I don't care who it is. Go get your newest talent to go sign people because you think they just got an episodic TV show, whatever else. Go off and do it. It's about being very strategic, okay? Everything I did in Hollywood was very strategic. I had everything thought out, and if I fucked up, I sat there and I sorry for using that. That's the traitor in me.
Can't fucking cuss on these panels.
But if I screwed up, okay, I sat there and I dealt with it, and I would eat it, and then you move on, and you learn, as long as it doesn't sink you. But coming from a position of strength with a team that is being proactive, and then if you can do a slate versus an individual movie, you come with a lot more authority and a lot more power.
And doesn't the slate give the investors a sense of comfort that even if these 2 don't work out, these 5 will, or something along those lines?
Absolutely.
That's what
I
I
mean,
understand about the slate.
we all have made a little bit of money. I know Ted, who's got the Goldman Sachs background, so he's got a certain pedigree. That is phenomenal, actually. But if you all make money, you invest for your retirement plan, right? You do 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds. That's the so-called methodology. Right now, it's a little bit more different, but whatever. I'm not gonna get it. But it's diversification. And if you invest in one movie, if that movie fails, you're done. If you invest in 5 and one really does well, and the other 3 do okay and one fails, you're going to do okay. You're going to come out. You know, you're going to have an enjoyable experience.